in the same direction, an awkward silence settling between them. After several tense moments, Flora finally breaks the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. So, what are your plans for the rest of the day? Aldred's face lights up as he quickly replies. Now that I've settled into my new home, I plan to ask your father, village chief Urgis, to introduce me to the other hunters in the village today. Flora's eyes widen in surprise. You're planning to join the hunters? But you've only been in the village for 4 days. Isn't that rushing things a bit? Aldred shakes his head, his expression resolute. I've been taken care of by so many people here. It's only fair that I start giving back. I want to contribute to the village too. Flora's serious expression softens, and she lets out a small laugh. Well, with you hunting, I suppose the village will be feasting on plenty of meat. Aldred's eyes widen at the thought. I, I can't promise that, but I'll definitely do my best, he stammers, feeling a sudden pressure to live up to her words. Flora's eyes sparkle with encouragement. I believe in you. I know you'll do great, with a newfound determination. As they continue walking together, the tension from earlier begins to melt away, replaced by a growing sense of comfort between them. Aldred notices many village girls wearing fancy clothes, which piques his curiosity. He turns to Flora and asks, why do the villagers wear such beautiful clothing? Is there a special reason behind it? Flora nods, her eyes reflecting the appreciation she feels for her village. Yes, there is a reason. Our village is surrounded by beautiful flowers and breathtaking nature. If we wore shabby clothes, it would ruin the harmony of the landscape. Wearing nice clothes is our way of respecting the beauty around us. Aldred is genuinely impressed. That's a wonderful idea. The clothes really do complement the village's atmosphere perfectly. Hearing Aldred's compliment, Flora's face lights up with joy. Thank you. It makes me happy to hear you say that. They continue walking along the road when they come across Chief Urgis, who greets Aldred enthusiastically. Well, how are you settling in? Do you like it here so far? Aldred smiles and quickly replies, thanks to Taku's furniture, I've settled in quite comfortably. It's surprisingly cozy. The chief beams with satisfaction. I'm glad to hear that. But before he can continue, Aldred gets straight to the point. When will I be introduced to the village hunters? I want to start my work as soon as possible. Chief Urgis looks at him in surprise, echoing the same sentiment Flora had shared earlier. You just settled in a few days ago. There's no need to rush things. Take it slow. Hearing this, Flora can't help but giggle, realizing her father said the exact same thing she did. Aldred watches her laugh, a soft smile playing on his lips. Then, turning back to Chief Urgis, he insists, I understand your concern, but I've received so much help from the villagers. It's only right that I start contributing in return. Chief Urgis sees the determination in Aldred's eyes and nods. Very well. If you're that eager, I'll introduce you to the hunters. I noticed you walking with my daughter, so once you're ready, head over to the town square later today. Later that day, Aldred gears himself up for hunting, complete with arrows and a sturdy bow. He admires his reflection, feeling confident about his appearance. Satisfied, he heads to the town square as instructed, where he encounters a well-built man in his mid-40s fully geared up for hunting, accompanied by a young girl trailing close behind. The older man approaches and introduces himself. You must be Aldred. I'm Lawrence, the village hunter. Chief Fergie's told me about you. Aldred's face lights up, eager to get started. Yes, I look forward to working with you. Lawrence chuckles and teases the young girl beside him. Well, unlike her, you seem to have good manners. The girl pouts, retorting, I do have good manners. Amused by their bickering, Aldred asks, are you two father and daughter? Both Lawrence and the young girl shout, no, before turning away from each other in exaggerated annoyance. Lawrence then introduces her properly. This is Karina. She's my disciple, not my daughter. And no daughter of mine would lack charm the way she does. Karina pouts, sticking out her tongue. Well, I wouldn't want you as a father anyway. She then turns to Aldred, her demeanor shifting to one of pride. I'm Karina, and I'm 12 years old. Aldred is impressed by her confidence, but remains silent, which Karina notices. You're not surprised that someone as young as me wants to be a hunter? Aldred shakes his head. Why would I be? Hunting isn't about being a man or a woman. It's about skill and perseverance. I wouldn't be foolish enough to judge someone based on their gender. Karina's eyes light up, and she smiles proudly. Well, I'm very athletic. I want to be a hunter so I can help everyone in the village. Lauren scoffs. Help? Huh? You're just a disciple, and you're at least 10 years too young to be a proper hunter. Karina puffs her cheeks in defiance. Then lower it to 3 years. Both Aldred and Lawrence are taken aback, giving her strained smiles. Lawrence shakes his head, turning to Aldred. Mind if she tags along? I need to test her knowledge as my disciple. Aldred shrugs, smiling. I don't mind at all. Lawrence grins in appreciation. Thanks. I owe you one. As they walk toward the mountains, Karina enthusiastically explains the area, mentioning how villagers frequently gather herbs and fruits. She also shares a secret. When I'm hungry, I look for nuts to eat. Oh, and when Master's in a bad mood, I give him a blue fruit to cheer him up. Lawrence's face flushes in embarrassment. Karina, don't go telling people unnecessary things. Ignoring his protests, Aldred asks about the local fruits. Lawrence seizes the opportunity to quiz his disciple. All right, Karina, name 5 fruits that grow around here. Karina proudly lists pico fruit, blue area, muria, kaku, and zuri. Lawrence smiles approvingly. Not bad. Turning to Aldred, he asks, do you know any of them? Aldred scratches his head. Just the kaku fruit. Lawrence nods. You should try the others. Here, this red spherical one is the pico fruit. It tastes like an apple, and you can eat it whole without peeling it. Aldred takes a bite, and his eyes widen. This is delicious. Lawrence grins. They're popular not only because they're tasty, but also because they're safe, no poisonous lookalikes. I got in trouble as a kid for staying out late eating these. As they continue walking, Karina finds a blue fruit and warns Aldred. The closer you get to the peel, the more bitter it gets, so avoid it. Lawrence laughs. That bitter taste is the best part. You'll understand when you're older. Karina rolls her eyes. Any adult who likes something so bitter must be crazy. Lawrence bursts into laughter while Aldred shakes his head, amused by their playful banter. Just then, they spot fresh deer tracks. Lawrence asks, want to try taking the shot? Aldred nods eagerly. Drawing his bow, he knocks an arrow and takes aim. In one fluid motion, he releases it, striking the deer with pinpoint accuracy. Lawrence's eyes widen in amazement. That was incredible. You're even better than my disciple here. Karina pouts. He's better than you too, master. Lawrence glares at her. You want to get expelled, you little brat? Karina grins cheekily. If you do, I'll just become Aldred's disciple. Lawrence's face turns red, and he puts Karina in a headlock, grumbling, brat. Later, as they haul the deer back to the village, they're met with admiration from the villagers. One of them asks Lawrence, did you bring down this beast? Lawrence shakes his head, pointing at Aldred. Nope, this one's all thanks to him. With his skill, we'll be eating meat for days. The villagers' eyes fill with respect as they gather around Aldred. Thank you. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Aldred's heart swells with gratitude. Thank you. I look forward to getting to know you all better. As the villagers process the meat and distribute it, Aldred reflects on his first successful hunt in the village. His new life was off to a promising start. Aldred thinks to himself as he considers these things. He notices that he has a visitor since there are knocking sounds coming from his front door. When he gets to the door, he is greeted by Flora, who, to Aldred's surprise, has come to check up on him. She sighs, relieved that he is fine and in tip-top shape. Embarrassed by the gesture, Aldred mentions that he worked very hard. He quickly changes the topic and gives Flora some meat as thanks for her kindness. As Aldred is getting ready to end the conversation, Flora stops him and asks him to join them for dinner again. To Aldred's surprise, he asks if it would be okay, to which Flora says yes. As Aldred makes his way to the village chief's house, he thinks back to Flora's prediction regarding his hunting prospects, and true to her word, they now enjoy plenty of meat. The next day, Aldred decides to visit the furniture maker. He promptly calls out to him, letting him know that he had brought some meat. Someone does open the door, and to his surprise, he is greeted by Aisha of all people, who greets him with a cheerful good morning. Confused, Aldred responds kindly and asks why Aisha was at his house. Aisha explains that she purchased a stool from Taku not too long ago, but it broke down, so she came to ask him to make another one. Aisha begins offering them some snacks in the shape of nuts, remarking that they were just lying around in Taku's house. She then jabs at him verbally, teasing him about the defective stool, which infuriates Taku. He comments that the stool broke because she used it as firewood, something he warned her about, predicting that it would indeed break. Aisha makes a sour face and mutters under her breath, which makes Aldred realize that she was at fault. Taku then tells Aisha that he won't give her any refunds, and if she wants another one, she'll have to look for the materials in the storage room. As Taku complains about Aisha's behavior, Aldred understands him a little. Changing the topic, Taku remembers that Aldred brought meat over and comments that he feels indebted to him. Taku is amazed by the freshness and bright red coloring of the meat. He then begins explaining the best way to cook it and mentions the need for salt. Aisha interrupts and suggests that the meat would pair well with wine. Taku then asks Aisha if she has picked a design for the new stool, which she confirms, and asks if it's at the same height as the previous one. Aisha then turns to Aldred and asks if he has a reward for her for guiding him previously. Aldred positively replies and inquires if he should bring it over to her, to which Aisha falls into thought. Aisha then suggests going to Aldred's house to eat the meat later. That day, at Aldred's house, he receives his guest and is surprised by the young woman standing on his porch. He doesn't recognize her, to which the woman hints that she isn't always wearing the same clothes, making Aldred realize that the very woman in front of him is Aisha herself, shocking him at how stark the difference is. Aisha gives Aldred the wine and baskets she had been carrying. However, Taku isn't letting this go, bursting into laughter at the fact that Aldred had no idea who she was and teasing her for probably roping her younger sister into wearing those strange clothes just for the dinner. This angers Aisha, who tells him to shut up with a grumpy face. At the gathering, Flora arrives, and Aisha seizes the opportunity to pull Taku's ear as punishment for his excessive teasing earlier. Aldred apologizes for abruptly calling Flora, but she dismisses his apology, saying that she has known Aisha for so long that she could guess it was her idea and that she has been like this for as long as she can remember. Taku then joins the chorus with Flora and repeats the phrase, a long time, as if reminiscing, to which Aisha responds by elbowing him in the ribs, causing Taku to let out a scream of pain. Taku then straightens up and looks Flora in the eye with the best smile he can muster, but it backfires as he ends up frightening her with his awkward smile while introducing himself and describing his line of work. Aisha has to intervene on his behalf and tell Flora that Taku isn't a bad person. He just looks scary. Aldred adds that Taku is rather kind to women, which startles Taku since he has no idea what they are whispering about. This prompts Flora to chuckle to herself. Amusement fills the room as everyone wonders what is going on. Flora adds that their interaction is just so entertaining to watch, and the group shares a laugh at the playful banter. Flora then introduces herself, openly stating that she is the daughter of the village chief, to which everyone else warmly welcomes her, returning her greeting. Aldred then invites everyone into the house, and the group follows him inside. Once inside, Aldred asks out loud what they should do with the meat. A very enthusiastic Aisha shouts that she wants stew and steak. However, Taku isn't having it and is appalled by the suggestion, commenting that it would take too long. Aisha loses her enthusiasm, wondering if her suggestion wasn't any good, before Flora steps in and reassures her that she has everything covered. Flora explains that she has already marinated two pieces of meat, one with olive oil and salt and another with wine and herbs. Seeing the prepared meat gives Taku, the resident foodie, many ideas on how to cook the meal. Aldred adds that things will indeed be cooked differently. Coming to an agreement, Taku begins giving swift orders on how they will cook the meat, stating that Aldred will take care of the roast while Aisha will handle the steak. They readily agree. Taku then adds that too much meat isn't good, so he'll take over the vegetables and keep an eye on Aisha for good measure. This last minute jab doesn't go over well, and Aisha soon protests. As the group begins with the preparations, Aldred asks Taku to teach him his recipe for making soup as good as his, noting that no matter how much he practices, he can't replicate the flavor he tasted the other day. Taku smirks knowingly and comments that it makes sense Aldred can't replicate the flavor since there are a couple of secrets he hasn't disclosed yet. Changing gears, Taku informs Aldred and Aisha that they only have two knives, so the two of them will have to share. Both Aldred and Aisha salute, showing their understanding of the captain of the kitchen. Aisha pauses for a moment, drawn in by the flavorful and appetizing smell of Aldred's roast. She comments that it smells pretty good. Taku, who is busy with a vegetable stir-fry, grumbles since he has to wait for Aldred and Aisha to finish using the knives. Frustrated, he snaps at Aisha to get back to work so he can finally use them. Ignoring the bickering happening nearby, Flora notices a change in Aldred and comments that he seems to be having fun. Aldred admits that he is, now that he's retired from adventuring and settled down in the village. This admission catches Aisha and Taku off guard, and they stop what they're doing, eagerly listening to Aldred's story. Flora is surprised and asks if he's fought monsters and demons before. Aldred confirms this, adding that he's also fought orcs, goblins, and even dragons. Aisha teases Aldred, saying that if they ever come under attack, they have nothing to worry about since Aldred is now one of the villagers of Nordende. Flora enthusiastically agrees, saying that if that time ever comes, they'd be depending on him. Aldred grins wryly, realizing they are teasing him. He shoots back, saying that it's been a while since he last fought monsters, so they shouldn't rely on him too much. As they continue cooking, the group chops, stirs, and peels ingredients, occasionally feeding each other for taste testing. At one point, Aisha feeds some of her roast to Aldred, causing him to blush slightly and admit that it's pretty good. Not everyone shares in the light-hearted atmosphere. Out of nowhere, Flora appears with a mischievous smile, asking where she should place the other ingredients while pointedly staring at Aldred. Flora keeps up the pressure, saying with a playful grin that Aldred has some sauce left over on his lips from the food Aisha just gave him. Aldred can only mumble his thanks, while a flustered Aisha calls him an idiot. Aldred is left completely baffled, not understanding why Aisha is suddenly being so mean to him. Later, the announcement that the food is ready echoes through the room, and the group heads to the table. They're greeted by a luxurious-looking banquet, even more impressive considering they cooked it themselves. The colorful accents of sauce and perfectly cooked meat decorate the plates beautifully. However, they soon notice that the abundant meat they started with is not fully represented on the dishes before them. The group quickly begins pointing fingers, blaming each other for eating the food while preparing it. Aldred comments that everyone was guilty of doing that. Flora puts up a feeble defense, claiming that she wasn't eating the food. She was taste testing to ensure it was presentable. Aisha shamelessly admits to eating it, prompting Flora to turn beet red and shout that she may have eaten a little too much the day before. To make up for it, Flora generously offers to share some of her portion with Aisha, leaving everyone else confused by their relationship. Moving on from the outburst, Aldred takes his seat at the head of the table and encourages his friends to eat to their heart's content as repayment for helping him out so much. He proclaims that he will entrust himself to their care from now on. As they begin eating, Aldred closes his eyes in delight, commenting that the sauté Flora prepared is simply exquisite. Flora shyly thanks him for the compliment and shoots back by praising the meat Aldred prepared, noting its fine texture and rich flavor. Aisha, not one for words, simply throws a thumbs up while chewing, her face full of satisfaction. Taku, the gourmet of the group, provides his critique, complimenting the meal and stating that the meat is tender and well seasoned. However, he's not as kind to Aisha's steak, remarking with deadpan eyes that it's too tough to chew. Aisha merely shrugs and states that she likes her steak with that kind of texture. Aldred chimes in, admitting that he enjoys it that way too. Flora then recommends pairing the strong wine with plenty of bread and vegetables. As they continue the feast, Flora praises the delicious soup. Aldred accepts the compliment before grumbling at Taku, complaining that no matter how hard he tries, he can't replicate Taku's soup. Taku rolls his eyes and calls Aldred an idiot, insisting that cooking is about adding your own twist and not copying someone else's recipe exactly. Seizing the opportunity, Flora offers Aldred a piece of fruit by hand, telling him to open wide. Aldred obeys without question. As he chews, he suddenly realizes that the flavor of the fruit is the secret ingredient he's been trying to figure out all along. He excitedly thanks Flora, who simply smiles warmly, happy to see his genuine joy. As the meal winds down, the group moves to the sofa, complimenting Flora's tea, praising its soothing flavor. They joke around, enjoying each other's company as the day comes to a pleasant end. Aisha sticks out her pinky, trying to appear refined, and asks, "Do I look like a princess?" To this, Taku snidely shoots back. There isn't a princess who drinks tea with her legs wide open. He adds that Aldred possesses more regality and appears more royal than Aisha. This catches Aldred completely by surprise, as he was suddenly dragged into a conversation he wasn't sure he belonged to. As they relax and finish their tea, the group suggests going fishing, an idea that excites everyone. They head to a nearby river known for its abundance of fish. As they make their way to the river, both Taku and Aldred note how pleasant the weather feels and joke about how challenging it will be to stay awake while fishing since the weather is perfect for a nap. While the two chat pleasantly, Aisha suddenly dashes toward the river, prompting Flora to chase after her. However, the chase doesn't last long as it turns out that Flora isn't much of a runner. Gasping for breath, Flora wonders how Aisha can run so fast and for so long. In response, Aisha scolds Flora, explaining that running regularly and maintaining stamina is essential since strong muscles won't fail when you need to run. Taku adds that since Aisha works at a large farm, she naturally has great stamina. He then teases her further by pointing out that Aisha's stamina might also come from constantly running away from her little sister, Tina. Aisha pouts at the jab but defends herself, explaining that running from her younger sister qualifies as a spur of the moment situation where she definitely doesn't want her muscles to give out. Laughing at Aisha's reasoning, the group promptly takes off their footwear and approaches the river. The two men dip their heads into the water, sighing in relief at how refreshing it feels. Aldred notices something peculiar about Taku's hair and remarks that it becomes surprisingly straight when wet. Annoyed, Taku grumbles that his hair will go back to normal soon enough and tells Aldred to shut up. Aisha is far from staying quiet, though, as she bursts into laughter at Taku's appearance. Flora looks at them, confused by the hilarity, and tries to cheer Taku up by innocently commenting that his straight hair looks rather cute. However, instead of brightening his mood, Taku sulks even more. Flora, puzzled, wonders why her compliment had the opposite effect. Aisha, realizing Flora's obliviousness, teases her, saying, "You can't just shamelessly and mercilessly tease him like that." Taku, flustered and irritated, fills a container with cold river water and promptly dumps it over Aisha's head, shutting her up instantly. Aisha snaps, "Why did you do that?" Taku bluntly replies, "To shut you up." Aisha is not one to let things slide. Seeing that Taku is looking in another direction, she fills another container to the brim and dumps the freezing water down his back. Taku lets out a startled yelp, which sends Aisha into a fit of laughter. Aldred senses that things are about to escalate and tries to intervene, but his premonition is correct. The two have declared an all-out water war. They begin filling containers with cold river water and hurling them at each other mercilessly. Caught up in trying to stop Taku and Aisha, Aldred suddenly feels a splash of cold water. Turning around, he sees Flora grinning mischievously, a container of water in her hand. Realizing she has declared him her next target, Aldred gives in to her provocation and begins retaliating in earnest. Flora lets out high-pitched squeals as Aldred launches a barrage of water at her, both of them laughing through the chaos. However, in the midst of their water fight, Aldred suddenly stops, his face turning beet red as he stands frozen in place. Flora, not understanding why he stopped or why he's making such a weird expression, looks down at herself. Her face quickly turns crimson as she realizes that her dress has become completely see-through from the water, revealing every detail of her feminine figure to Aldred. Frozen in mortified shock, Flora finally lets out a loud shriek, her hands moving to cover herself as she trembles in embarrassment.